Hello, and thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation on the Child and Adult Care Food Program. This online training is the first step in the application process for organizations interested in participating in the Child and Adult Care Food Program. In this presentation, we will cover basic information on what the Child and Adult Care Food Program is, how it works, who can participate, and the benefits of participation. There are more online training presentations that cover some additional requirements as well as rules for different types of organizations and the application process. In addition, we require Child Development Centers to attend the Division of Early Learning's Foundations course on nutrition for early learners prior to applying for the program. The Child and Adult Care Food Program, or CACFP, plays a vital role in improving the overall quality of daycare and emergency services and in meeting the daily nutritional needs of all participants. The CACFP provides funding to offset the cost of providing nutritious meals and snacks to eligible participants in a variety of care settings. The CACFP works on a reimbursement basis, which means that you first have to purchase food and serve meals, and then the CACFP provides you with money based on the number of meals that you served. So it's kind of like a cycle. You provide nutritious meals, then get money for it, and that helps you to provide more nutritious meals. That also frees up money from tuition, subsidy, and other sources, allowing you to offer higher quality services. And providing healthy, well-balanced meals is also a great benefit to busy families as well as to the participants themselves. Please note that CACFP does not reimburse you based on your actual costs. We'll talk more later about how reimbursements are calculated, how you can spend CACFP money, and how to document your expenses. The CACFP is a federal program. At the federal or national level, the CACFP is administered by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, or USDA. Each state then designates an agency to work with the USDA to administer the CACFP within the state. In the District of Columbia, the designated state agency is the Office of the State Superintendent of Education, which you probably know as OSSE. As the state agency, OSSE oversees participating institutions. The term institution just means an organization that works directly with the state agency. An institution could be an independent center, which is a direct care provider, like a child development center, that operates a single location. An institution can also be a sponsoring organization, which is an organization with multiple locations, or an organization that supports other centers or family daycare home providers in the CACFP. Centers also have the option to work directly with the state agency as an institution or participate under a sponsoring organization. Family daycare homes must participate in the CACFP under a sponsoring organization. Any one location that participates in the CACFP, whether sponsored or independent, is called a facility. Before going any further, I want to say a word about family daycare homes, which are sometimes known as family child development homes. Family daycare homes cannot apply directly to the state agency to participate independently in the CACFP. However, homes are eligible to participate through a sponsoring organization. Family daycare home providers select an approved sponsoring organization and enter into an agreement or contract. The sponsoring organization then applies to the state agency on the home's behalf and provides training, technical assistance, and oversight, as well as processes paperwork and pays claims. If you're a family daycare home provider listening right now, you are welcome to continue with this presentation, but you don't need to complete it in order to participate with a sponsor. If you'd like, you can stop right now and contact Norma Burkhead at norma.burkhead@dc.gov to get a list of approved sponsoring organizations. However, there are a variety of organizations that are eligible to participate as institutions in the CACFP. Public entities, such as government agencies, the armed services, and public or charter schools may participate. Nonprofit organizations, whether community-based or faith-based, are also eligible. For-profit businesses may be eligible depending on the individuals that they serve. A for-profit center is eligible as long as 25% or more of the individuals enrolled are eligible for free or reduced price meals, or if 25% or more receive child care subsidy benefits. For adult daycare centers, for-profit centers are eligible if 25% or more of the enrolled adults are eligible for free or reduced price meals, or if at least 25% of the adult participants receive Medicaid benefits. Please note that you cannot combine the number of participants eligible for free or reduced price meals with the number eligible for subsidy or Medicaid benefits in order to reach the 25% threshold. You have to choose one method or the other. Also, this same requirement applies to for-profit centers that participate as facilities under a sponsoring organization. In case you're interested in applying as a sponsoring organization or in being sponsored, let's talk a little bit more about sponsorship. There are several different types of sponsoring organizations. For one, sponsoring organizations can work with centers or family daycare homes or both. The simplest case of sponsorship is a group of affiliated centers. Remember, independent centers are direct care providers with only one location. If you operate multiple locations, then you must be considered a sponsoring organization. If the centers are part of the same legal entity and share the same tax ID number, then the centers are considered affiliated. For example, if Shana Jones owns Shana's Daycare 1 and Shana's Daycare 2, and they are incorporated as part of the same business or nonprofit, then Shana Jones must participate in the CACFP as a sponsor of affiliated centers. The only exception is when all centers are less than 500 feet apart. In that case, the state agency considers you to be an independent center with a campus. It is also possible for an institution to sponsor other unaffiliated centers in the CACFP. As you might infer, unaffiliated centers do not share the same legal identity or tax ID number with each other or with the sponsoring organization. In this case, the centers are separate businesses or nonprofits, and the sponsoring organization provides support so that the center can participate in the CACFP. The sponsoring organization must have an agreement or contract with each sponsored center so that it's clear exactly what type of support the sponsor will provide. In what's known as a cash agreement, the center takes care of purchasing the food, and the sponsor handles the administrative requirements, like filing claims. The sponsor receives the reimbursement money on behalf of the center, but then passes along that money to each center. The sponsoring organization keeps a predetermined percentage of the reimbursement money in exchange for its administrative services. In a non-cash agreement, the sponsor purchases food on behalf of the center or provides meals directly to the center and manages the administration of the program as well. The sponsor keeps all of the reimbursement money in exchange for both food and administrative services. In either case, sponsors of unaffiliated centers must be nonprofit organizations. Sponsoring organizations may also sponsor family daycare homes. In this case, the sponsoring organization must also be a nonprofit, and it must have a cash agreement with each provider. The sponsoring organization receives a separate administrative reimbursement for its center services, and the food reimbursement must be passed through to providers. There are many different types of care providers that may participate in the CACFP, including child care or child development centers that provide traditional full-day care, as well as centers providing before and after care to school-age children. Also, family daycare home providers are eligible, as well as after-school programs in low-income areas, adult daycare centers, and emergency shelters that provide care for homeless or at-risk children. All of these facility types, with the exception of family daycare homes, are eligible to be either sponsored facilities or institutions. As institutions, you may participate as either sponsors or independent centers. And again, family daycare homes must be facilities operating under a sponsoring organization. Here is a list describing one of the most basic eligibility requirements for facilities: proof of meeting applicable local health and safety requirements. For child development centers and homes in DC, this is easy. A valid child development facility license proves that you've met applicable standards. Of course, we'll still check to make sure that your food service operations are in compliance with the terms of your license, but we'll talk more about that in other trainings. For now, just know that you have to have your license before you can apply for the CACFP. As you can see, centers that operate both before and after school must have a child development facility license. Typically, these centers offer before and after care along with traditional full-day care for infants, toddlers, and preschoolers. The license must cover all ages served and operate within license capacity. Programs that only operate before school or after school hours are not required to obtain a child development facility license, but they still need to have a certified food handler on staff and pass an annual fire inspection. Emergency shelters must be approved and inspected by the District of Columbia Department of Human Services. Requirements for adult daycare centers are more individualized depending on the type of services provided and funding received. There are some additional eligibility requirements for adult daycare centers that we will discuss in another presentation. Licensed child development centers that provide care for school-aged children, as well as outside school hours programs, may participate in the CACFP similar to other types of care providers. However, there is a special program for after-school programs that operate in low-income areas. In order to participate as an at-risk after-school program, the program must be located in a school attendance zone where at least 50% of the students at the school are eligible for free or reduced price meals. After-school programs must also offer some kind of educational or enrichment activity and serve meals or snacks after regular school hours during the school year. That means that programs that only operate before school, on weekends, or during the summer cannot participate in the at-risk after-school meal program. We'll talk more about these requirements later in a separate presentation on the at-risk after-school meal program. For now, keep listening for more on the basics of the CACFP. In addition to the institution and facility meeting eligibility requirements, the participants served must also meet eligibility requirements. Most of these have to do with age. For the most part in child care settings, whether center or home-based, full day or outside school hours, the age limit is 12 years. That means you can't get reimbursed for meals served to a child on or after their 13th birthday. One exception is the children of migrant workers, in which case you can get reimbursed up until their 16th birthday. Also, a person with a documented disability may participate regardless of age, as long as most participants are eligible by age. As a note, you'll see that the eligibility begins at birth. If you do serve infants in your center or home, you are required to make CACFP benefits available to those infants. In at-risk after-school programs, you can continue receiving reimbursement for meals served to children and teens through age 18. Also, you can continue claiming a teen who turns 19 during the school year, as long as the teen was 18 at the beginning of the school year. In emergency shelters, all children and youth are eligible through age 18 or up until their 19th birthday. Since emergency shelters aren't tied to a school year in the same way that after-school programs are, there's no provision to allow reimbursement for meals served to participants after they turn 19. For adult daycare centers, functionally impaired adults are eligible from age 18, and all adults age 60 and older are eligible. Household income, or need, does not factor into participant eligibility, and in fact, all participants must be offered the same meal at no separate charge. However, the household income of the participants you serve does impact the amount of money that you receive. The CACFP reimbursement amount varies both by the type of meal served, breakfast, lunch or supper, and snack, as well as by the eligibility category of each participant, free, reduced, or paid. This slide shows you the current reimbursement rates. Reimbursement rates change on July 1 of each year and typically increase to reflect the Consumer Price Index for food away from home. The commodity reimbursement, listed under lunch and supper, refers to an extra reimbursement paid for each lunch or supper served, regardless of participants' eligibility categories. The state agency has elected to give extra cash instead of actual commodity foods. Please note that at-risk after-school programs and emergency shelters are not required to collect household income eligibility information for their participants. All meals served in these facilities are reimbursed at the free rate, which is the highest rate. Also, please note that reimbursements to family daycare home providers and their sponsors are calculated in a completely different way, which we'll discuss separately. First, though, the reimbursement for child and adult daycare centers requires a little more explanation. In the District of Columbia, the state agency pays participants based on a blended rate. Each month, we calculate the percentage of enrolled participants in each eligibility category. For example, you may have 50% of your participants in the free category, 25% in the reduced category, and the last 25% in the paid category. Using these percentages, we calculate a weighted average reimbursement rate, a blended rate, for each meal type that is unique to your center and to the month. The more participants that you have in each category, the higher your blended rate will be. That blended rate is multiplied by the number of meals that you serve during that month. So as you can see, your reimbursement amount depends on a lot of factors, but your actual cost is not one of those factors. It is up to you to spend your reimbursement money appropriately and economically. This is an example of what your reimbursement might be using this method. For example, if you have 30 children enrolled at your center and 24 of those children qualify for free meals, 4 qualify for reduced price meals, and 2 qualify for paid meals, and the center serves a breakfast, lunch, and snack to each child every operating day during the month of October, the center would receive a reimbursement of $3,588.12. This spreadsheet gives you a little more detail on how that amount was calculated. In this spreadsheet, you enter your information into the yellow boxes, and the gray boxes are programmed with the federal reimbursement rates and formulas that calculate your blended reimbursement rates based on your eligibility classifications. Then, based on the number of meals served, your total reimbursement is calculated. For family daycare homes and their sponsors, the reimbursements are a little simpler. Each home is classified as either Tier 1 or Tier 2 based on the home's location or the provider's own household income. Tier 1 homes are located in lower income areas, or the provider qualifies based on her personal household income level. Once qualified as Tier 1, the provider receives the higher Tier 1 rate for each meal served. Providers who do not qualify as Tier 1 may opt to gather household income information from the enrolled children and receive the Tier 1 rate for eligible children, or the provider may take the lower Tier 2 rate for all meals served. Again, family daycare homes work with a sponsoring organization, and the sponsor takes care of paying the providers. Sponsors of family daycare homes receive a separate administrative reimbursement for each home. The rate is based on the total number of homes that the organization sponsors. Since CACFP funding is being provided to help you serve healthy meals to the participants in your care, it's important to talk about how you actually go about providing those meals. First, please note that the state agency does not provide food or prepared meals. We only provide reimbursement funding to help you do that yourself. You have several options for providing meals, though. If you have adequate kitchen facilities, you can purchase food and prepare meals on site. You can purchase food at a nearby grocery store, at a warehouse club like Sam's or Costco, or from a distributor like US Foods or Sysco, whatever is most economical and efficient for your center. Sponsoring organizations with multiple centers or locations may opt to prepare meals at one location and then deliver those to participating facilities. The location where meals are prepared is considered a central kitchen. This could be more cost-effective since you typically need fewer cooks to prepare meals, and purchasing and preparing food in bulk can be cheaper. Independent centers and sponsors could also choose to use or rent kitchen space at another location. If this describes your operations, though, please contact the state agency to ensure that you have the necessary inspections and approvals to cook off-site. Another option is obtaining meals from a food service management company, which is more commonly known as a catering company. This can be more expensive than preparing meals on site, but it's a great option if you don't have a kitchen. And if you do have a kitchen but don't want to have to worry about hiring a cook, planning meals, or buying food, then you could hire a food service management company to prepare meals on site for you. Please note that you must follow procurement procedures and sign a contract if you choose to work with a food service management company. The company must be licensed to provide catering services in the jurisdiction in which it is located, and it must also have passed its most recent health inspection. You have some flexibility in how you use your CACFP reimbursements. However, it's important to make sure that you're spending your money on allowable and approved expenses. The most common expense, and where most of your money should be going, is food. Again, this applies to food you buy at the grocery store, food that's delivered by a distributor, or meals that are prepared by a caterer. You can also use CACFP money for supplies, like paper products and utensils for serving meals, and kitchen supplies and equipment. Labor costs are also an allowable use of CACFP money, although you can only pay for the portion of an employee's wages associated with meeting CACFP requirements. If you have a full-time cook, you could use CACFP funds to pay for as much of their wages as you can. If you have staff who work on CACFP paperwork, you might be able to pay for some of their wages depending on exactly how much time they spend on that CACFP work. You can also pay for some administrative costs like paper for printing records, but that is typically more difficult to document. Speaking of documentation, it's extremely important to make sure that all of your costs are appropriately documented. In most cases, that means an itemized receipt or invoice. It can also mean payroll records to document labor costs. You also need to track your expenses to show how you're spending your CACFP reimbursement funds. And again, please remember that your CACFP reimbursements may not cover 100% of your costs. We will talk more about this in later trainings. This brings us to the end of the CACFP overview and benefits presentation. Now that you've completed this training, you can take the quiz at the link provided on this slide. You will need to provide your name, the name of your organization, and your email address, as well as answer some questions about this training. You will need to answer all of the questions correctly in order to pass, but you may take the quiz as many times as needed. You can also listen to this presentation again. We will contact you regarding your quiz results and let you know the next step in the application process. If you have any questions, or if you're interested in finding a sponsor, please contact Norma Burkhead at norma.burkhead@dc.gov. Thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to working with you.